So hello, my name is Gregor Giersch. I'm based in Vienna and working there with IDC, a small independent research association, mainly doing social scientific research, and that's also my background. And I will provide some information on the Austrian case study we had a look at within the CP3 project. And as Claudia already mentioned, the Austrian case study is located about 100 kilometers upstream at the Danube, upstream from Vienna. I also give you some impressions of the landscape. So you can see it's a small structured landscape with some mountainous parts and some valley parts with a quite variety of agricultural activities, ranging from wine and fruits, apricots in the valleys, and to forests and Christmas trees in the upper parts. And yeah, well, you can just see the pictures. To the challenges in the Austrian case studies, it is a landscape that is really undergoing deep structural changes, starting from the average farm size that is still very low, but is increasing. The whole agricultural production system is changing, including some land use changes. It used to be, especially in the upper parts, there were some dairy farms, but they are no longer economically sustainable. So there's a land conversion going on away from pasture to Christmas trees, and in the valleys from apricots to wine. And especially in the more difficult parts, in the steeper parts, in the less accessible parts, there is the land is converted from pasture to forests, and that's one of the big losses in biodiversity going on already for several decades, but with no actual end in sight in this change. So we have a loss in biodiversity. Despite conservation efforts and despite environmental protection regimes like the Natura 2000 that applies to almost all of the nature park. So there are multiple pressures facing the situation of the farmers, and they have a lot to do with the marginal natural conditions of the region. It's simply not economically competitive to do agriculture in this type of landscape in a unified, integrated European agricultural market, except from some small niche products. Then this results in limited perspectives for younger generations. Lots of younger people do not stay in the region, and we are seeing already for the last couple of decades a depopulation, the trend of declining population that can be predicted to go on. And the benefits that came in terms of tourism, they are mainly concentrated to the valley and the Danube Valley, and that does not benefit the regions that are a little bit up and far away from the river. So the protection regimes that were put in place, like the Natura 2000, they can even increase these pressures because they make some economic restraints, and they are not able to uphold the land use changes that are ongoing, both in the direction of land abandonment and intensification. Then there are some agro-environmental schemes like the Austrian Ölpool program, but they also do not provide a long-term guarantee to biodiversity protection like in the Dutch case study with the 30 years perspective. And they are also not suited to really uphold market pressures, because basically such national programs everybody could apply, and the difficulty of the landscape is not the main determining factor of how much benefits you can get out of such a scheme. So to summarize these challenges, there are market pressure that will result either in more land abandonment or more intensification and conversion to intensified productions like the Christmas trees. And both land abandonment and intensification will result in losses in biodiversity, and have already resulted in the loss of biodiversity. And there is no evident sustainable development pathway for the communities, and for such communities with economically difficult physical landscapes. And locals, they're expressing fear and even desperation in view of these progressing market pressures. And it's clear that ecological concerns are sidelined by such fears. So the real question and challenge is, what are accommodation strategies for such non-competitive landscapes? And I guess it's a question that applies to many landscapes across the European Union, not just in Austria. And it is also not a new question. It's a question that arose already after the Second World War in the agricultural change, because of the very different environmental conditions of farmers across Austria. And the concept of nature park was very much developed around the idea that there must be a search for concepts to reconcile regional development and protection, conservation, but it was not. It took a long time to fill this four-pillar concept with some life, because it's just a kind of law that's setting out. There should be a combination of these four pillars in the regional development pathways. But it's not. There are no financial resources to back up these pillars. So it took a long time to get to a functioning institutional setup in form of a Nature Park Association. And in this Nature Park Association, there are all 7 municipalities taking part as board members, and as main contributors to the regular funding. So there is a kind of resource pooling mechanism between the 7 communities put in place. And together with these funds, they try to attract other budgets, seeking project contributions, and engage with civil society and NGOs working on a variety of issues concerning all the 4 pillars of the concept of nature park. So this specific association in a way helped to overcome the administrative boundaries and really focus the municipalities to work on the nature park together in a form where there is some resource pooling involved. It's not that much. It's about €1 per capita and year, so it's small contributions, but still it gives a common purpose. And the association now starts to engage in a variety of initiatives. And these initiatives range from a so-called Saftladen, a juice store where pupils from local schools collect apples from orchards that are no longer economically used. And then they produce a juice that is distributed to the schools and also to the communities. So it's a project that helps very much in awareness raising. Then the association, the Naturpark Verein, engages in organizing voluntary youth summer camps. This is done together with UNESCO, and this helps to maintain some of the most valuable pastures that are economically by no means possible to maintain. And they organize summer camps, and the youth can engage and take out the high and avoid that the forest grows over. And a third initiative of the Naturpark Verein is a weekly farmer market. But here, like with the other activities, in economic terms, they are quite small. All of these initiatives still depend heavily on individuals and their motivation. But what is clear that it helps to incubate local initiatives. So the real question is this enough? And during the project, we were talking with a lot of farmers, and just quite recently we had a conversation with an organic farmer that also has set up a local agricultural marketing infrastructure that is quite successful. And he just asked us, except from some biologists, who actually wants to maintain this level of biodiversity in the region. And what's clear is that it will not be the tourists who just wish to get an impression of a traditional beautiful landscape, and it's probably not the politicians or society at large that would hardly agree to bear the cost of maintaining an entire landscape like this. And it's probably also not the locals that struggle on a day-to-day basis with the conditions set by a never more integrated market on the one side, and the not so easy physical landscape conditions at the Jauerling Mountain. At the moment, a certain type of intensification related to niche products like the Christmas trees seems to be the only way to prevent disruptive change of land use. And a question in this regard would be then how such intensification that is accompanied with some loss in biodiversity can nonetheless be perceived as the only or the best available of the options. So this is a question: how could it be made in a way that it really can serve as a bridge? And further questions that seems to be unsolved to our understanding is what is the long-term perspective for such regions that do not, by its natural properties, allow for competitive agricultural production? And this is a difference to the Netherlands or the Netherlands case study, where you have a highly competitive agriculture and you have to put a part of it and use it for other than the provisioning services, use it for getting more landscape and more biodiversity. Here you have maybe a lot of biodiversity, but it's no longer affordable for those who have, in the traditional way of production, created this type of landscape. The market drives them out of business. So if collaborative approaches can set up initiatives that find some answers to these difficult questions, the backside of it would be, can we then really expect that such local collaboration can solve such fundamental problems of this magnitude, or not? and in what place, so to say, should we perceive the role of collaborative governance approaches. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregor. We have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Just a moment. Was there any initiative to make the intensification more sustainable through, for instance, ecological Christmas trees?
Yes, there was, and there are still ongoing initiatives. At the moment, there's discussion going on even within this Naturpark Association to create some sort of a label. And it's a question whether the size of the production is big enough. This is one of the questions. And the second, which so far prevented such initiatives, is that everyone is producing for the market by themselves, and farmers tend not to be the born collaborators. So to set up a label would mean to find a model that takes enough farmers on board to get a critical mass in terms just of numbers, and still have some more ecological production techniques attached to this label. This is the question, and there are ongoing discussions, but it's not yet in place.
Thank you. I understand the challenge. And we have another question. Are there studies which discuss the role of niche markets for region landscape like this?
Could you repeat? I had a strange noise in the middle.
I'm sorry. Are these studies?
I can read it now.
Yes.
I have found very few studies, at least in regards to nature parks. Certainly, there is some literature regarding niche products in general in the agricultural sphere, but to have this more focused on this regional setup of a nature park and a landscape, so to say, I did not find a lot. So this is still, I guess, a field where research could be done. Yeah.